Hello, hello, hello. What is up, everybody? Welcome to this quick pop-up stream. We are going to be working in real life today. And I got this set up to try some in real life, and I am really excited to share with you guys. We're going to be playing around a little bit with some simple hand lettering styles. So as a designer, as an artist, you know, your hand lettering style matters. That can become something very integral if you're a graphic designer, obviously. But if you're just an artist, you want to play with lettering and things like that, you know, it's really rad to try and just to be conscious of like what you know, right? So today we're going to build up a couple chops, right? We're going to get a couple of things going that will, you know, let us start to letter, right? To like come up with ways to do it and do it fast, okay? So, all right, so let's get started. Welcome, Mike Worth here, everybody. All right, so we're gonna start with first, right? We're doing, we said today, some hand lettering, and we just wanna like really just kind of think about what we're doing while we're writing. And you can see like I do some funky stuff here with my lettering. And let's make sure this camera is as focused as can be. Yeah, nice, that's looking good. Okay, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Excited to have you guys here. We got Pretzel Radio on the stream. Excited to have tunes to work with. Okay, so hand lettering, bam, 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 right in the house. So first and foremost, we want to think about really simple, like the monoline, which is just what we would call print, right? So monoline. So how do you write? You know, I wrote that lowercase. Let's try monoline, all capitals. Okay, just real simple, your print hand style. Like that's just the most kind of basic thing that you could do there, and that's great. Okay, and then from here, right, Rick, this is really the foundation for like everything that you're going to do. So we're going to look at you know, making some scripts that are a little thicker, like block text. We're going to do some cursive and some pseudo calligraphy, right, to sort of suggest that something's fancy and classical. We're going to look at certain typefaces that have feet, right? Serifs that are from the fashion age, 19th century. We'll look at Gothic and Romanesque style, and then we'll do some 3D. Okay, so we'll make some things really fun here, really exciting. All right, so we got the monoline to start, and like that's dope, of course, fantastic, way to go, love it, love it, love it. But now, like real simple is like we can already start to think about how to take monoline into something a little bit greater. So if we were to write the word double, okay, in all caps, then we can start to think about the double line that would go into here, right? Like what that would look like. So the way I like to do it is it's a broken outline, right? So I fill in like what would be this side of the letter, and then I come around the outside like that, and it's all broken line, but now that D looks like it's got a three-dimensional aspect to it, and that's exactly what you want. That's what the double does for you here. And boom, we'll do that on here, right? Notice I'm connecting kind of where the lines, like see how they almost touch? There's like a little bit of gravity between there and there and there and there. That's what you really are in the market for. That's what you really want to do. So, all right, coming in on the U, and then bam on this side. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm suggesting that there's like a shadow, you know, that we can observe from that side, right? And we can do this on either side of the letter forms. It's really fine. Okay, we'll come in, we'll do it here on the B. Right, I won't go as far on that one, I don't think. You know, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's like close, close. These are fast letters that we're trying to work on here. Okay, let's get that L. Cool. Again, it gives it that three-dimensional look. That's exactly what we want. And then we do the under parts here, and we'll do the sides. Cool. Okay, so already, you know, the double is like doing something fun. Okay. And so sticking with just this style, like kind of so far, right, with the double line, where we can already start to think we can go in a few directions with this. But like one thing that's like really important is to think about this idea of how letters sit, okay? So letters sit on this 3-line matrix right here, right? There's actually 5 lines, but for the sake of today, we're going to go with the 3 because this is about hand lettering, not really about typography, Okay, so the bottom here is called the baseline. Okay, and this is like the floor, so to speak. Okay, now you know how like you ever seen like fancy dress like hits the floor, and then sometimes there's a train and it kind of goes beyond. So there is actually space below the baseline where letter anatomy can exist. But anyway, okay, so, and above as well. So here we got the next thing, which is the middle of the letter, which is called the X height. And this X height can move. It's not always the dead center, but it is the midway point, or like the waist, so to speak, if you were to use like humanist terms, okay, to describe how this goes. All right, and then the top is the cap height. Okay. And there's, like we said, there is other space above and below for advanced typography. You know, like certain scripts and prints even go below the baseline above it. And you have like the ascender height and the descender height. That's what those parts are called, right? Where you got extra spacing and stuff. Okay. All right, but keeping it simple here, right, and really thinking about this, is that like this baseline is how letters want to sit, right? So if we were to just sort of think about how we would draw letters in the space, right? This is what we would use, or a typographer would use, or a sign painter would use, and to line up characters and to kind of understand the relationship that all of these letters have with each other, right? When it comes to kind of being in words, right? We want all those letter forms to appear to be harmonized, right? That they like are in relation to each other and they belong together. Right, that's the important thing, is that like as a letter form designer, you want people to feel like, oh, well, this all belongs together. Okay, here's my point about this, is that sure, Mike, like, yeah, we get it. All text does that, right? I could sit here and I could draw X heights on a lot of these things, right? And start to lay it out just like grade school, okay? But as a letterer, what you want to understand is now you can bend that. Right, is that like you can kind of mess with that. So one thing I like to think of is doing the rise. Okay, so like creating that and understanding that, right, this little thing here, it's called a rise. I didn't make that up. That's a graphic design term, sign painter term. And what that does is now you take text that looks italic, right? We're going to talk about italic in a second here. But then, so if we wrote the word italic, right, and understood that the text was going to lean on an angle here, right, like that's really the first lesson, right, is this idea of italic. And then what if we took italic and then we like turned it this way, like that? Do you see how now that all of a sudden looks very like affirmative, right, and very sort of towards the future, right? It leans into the future. Really fun. So here we can do this. We can go O and sale, right? Something you want to call attention to in a store, right? The rise effect here, by shifting the baseline, by raising the baseline effectively from, right, 0 degrees, right, /180 up to, say, what, 35, right? It's not quite 45, maybe 30 degrees. Right here to here is that difference. So if you can sort of imagine those things, then you're on your way to creating what's known as a rise, right? So like you can shift the baseline. This can also, the baseline can do all sorts of things. This is like a flag effect, right? Where you can now put, things in here that would be, that would benefit from a flag effect, USA, something like that. A holiday, something fancy, you know what I mean? Also, I'm running out of room here, but you can do an arch, right? Harley Davidson, Hell's Angels, tough. I did that terribly, right? The rise can kind of, you can sell cookies and be tough all at the same time, right? This is sort of how this goes. So that's what's important about understanding a couple things here, right? Is that we have the simple line style, right? That we can do lowercase, uppercase, italic. We can double it up to go in that realm of 3D. And then we can also play with this idea of bending the baseline, right? Bending it upon which the type or the lettering sits. That's really, really an important thing, okay? So right? Shifting ahead here real quick. Let's play with some of those baseline shifts and really see what it is that we were talking about before. So here, right, we'll take this rise like this, okay? And what this means now is that we can plot typography and lettering across this space, right? Like this is our indicator here. Looks like Wi-Fi, right? But it's really a framework upon which, you know, the top of the letter, the bottom of the letter, the midpoint all will follow. And that's how you keep your letters locked, right, across the space. Even if you're doing it by hand, you know, it's like, it's the bomb to just quickly have fun and do it by hand. Okay, so let's do that word that we were looking at before, tough. Okay, and this is actually like a nice lesson, is to look at the word you have. And yes, I know I'm a combo writer where I do uppercase, lowercase. My bad, I'm sorry. So how many letters do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we have 5. So we have an odd amount of letters, which is actually great, okay? So this technique I want to show you is for how you would lay out these letters across this space. So if you have an odd or an even amount of letters, and depending on how many words you have, right, because we want to account for spaces in between the words, this helps us plot this out, okay? And it comes from just doing something really simple, which is like dividing spaces into midsections, cutting them in half, right, that kind of thing. Pretty simple. All right, so looking at this here, right, like I want to give my word like that much buffer space. So I'm just kind of pretending that that's off limits, right? Like the letters can start there. And then I'm going to look here in the center and I'm going to say, here's the dead center, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is great because we have this, right? We can start to think about these letters being in pairs, and that's how I'm going to map them onto the space. All right, so I love to start with the center letter always and kind of build around that, right? So let's see how we're doing here. And y'all, this isn't a dead fire thing. It just like, it may be that this helps me with layout, and then I do squashing and stretching to see how big or small something needs to be to fit in that space. So we plotted the U, right? And you can see we've got there's the U, okay? And then from here, we will do the T. Okay, right? I'm trying to like have it mimic what's going on here. Let's follow the baseline and the cap height and stuff like that. That just, you know, just keeps everything together. All right, and then the H. Okay, just measuring here. It looks like I came in 1 pencil's length from that line to the T. So that might be too tight. You know, it could just be, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm going to measure it on this side too and see, all right, that's a pencil's length between here to here. Good move. Luckily, H has a pretty geometric thing, and I'm seeing here that like that T is about the length of my entire pencil, so that could help me map, okay? And now understand that there's a little bit of a curve here, so the H actually kind of sits on an angle somewhat, okay? Seriously, like it's not a perfect H like this. It has to kind of look like that a little bit in order to fit that bend of the geometry. This is like non-Euclidean geometry. That's a fun word for a Tuesday morning, non-Euclidean geometry. But that's what's going on, is because the width of the letter spans a curve, all of a sudden it's distorted on the bottom. The bottom parts, the rungs, come closer together. Like a bridge on the earth, if it spans a long enough space, it's actually, the bridge will curve to follow the curvature of the earth. Amazing, I know. Okay, so we got that, tuh, okay. And now let's add the O, and let's see, okay, in between here and here is there, and here is there, okay. Let's see if we can do this. It might not be surefire. We're gonna have to see if this is gonna fit. This looks all right to me, and let's see what we can do here on the G. Okay, and this needs to be a capital G. Okay. Not bad. Not perfect, but not bad. But y'all, this is a great technique for doing this letter layout, right? Like this really helps us kind of get, you know, how this goes. Yeah, I appreciate doing this. So, okay. Same thing can be had for, let's try a different kind of layout. Right, we were trying to do a flag one earlier. Okay, and then boom, let's blunt it, right? Like it's an actual flag. And this lets us to map letters now onto those spaces, right? Like easily. So let's take the word flag, because it has 4 letters. It doesn't have an odd amount of letters like last time we were trying to make that kind of thing happen. It has an even amount of letters. So the same technique actually can work. We just got to kind of work it a little bit, but you'll see how it goes. It's pretty dope. Okay. Quick coffee break. Welcome everybody, Mike Worth here. Say what's up in the chat. Give me a follow, right? Pop-up stream today. We're doing, it's a complete IRL. We're doing lettering, hand lettering, right? Basics, super basics for the super beginner. So if you're just like, hey, I want to like try this, you know, I have a super high-tech pencil here, okay? Really good. I got some yellow copy paper and I'm just going for it here. I'm really trying to make some like simple but effective techniques to happen here, okay? So, hang with it. Appreciate you guys. I've got my consistent, my 1 follower. Appreciate you being here. Let's get to it. So let's map now flag to this. So I'm going to build in my little margin. Okay, it's about a half a pencil's length on either side, just to have a little bit of buffer space. Okay, and we're going to then think about the fact that we want to cut this in half. Okay. And then we're going to cut this in half and cut this in half. So what I've just done is I've effectively just made spaces for where the letters will go. Okay. So instead of now using, like we did here, the lines that we use to bisect the space become the center points of the letter forms. Here they become the dividers of the letter forms. So that's the difference between the even and the odd amount. So if you have an odd amount of letters, you use the center letter as the center, right? And then this one becomes the divider, right? So this one's the odd and this one's the even, okay? So these become center lines for letters, and these become divider lines for letters, okay? Which is off camera, sorry. Boom, okay, so that's pretty cool. So let's see now what this looks like in action. Let's just pull this away here. So we don't have to go crazy. We can just lightly pencil in what's happening here. I'm not even really kind of following, like going across the word like I was before, crisscross, crisscross with the odd. I mean, you really have to just kind of make sure it lands right. But this one's really straightforward. So, all right, cool, feeling good. Let's darken the penciling in now. Oh, went a little overboard there, but I will come in and erase. Cool. So this now allows us to have really beautiful freestanding typography. You know, we can get rid of this framework here. And that's really it, you know, using the light lines to figure out where things need to go. And the rest can fall away. Same thing with tough. Right, flag, those are really great things. So this is it, y'all. Like when you are really trying to think about like ways to make your simple lettering look cool and interesting and like have effect, or to elevate a concept, right? Real reasons to make this stuff. And you got to think about these 2 techniques, right? The odd and the even distribution of letters. That's really like the money here. Okay, all right. Dope. So that works for the monoline, right? And the simple stuff, just like a quick flex back on here, right? When it comes to talking about just monoline, doing a little double line, that was a side step there. And then playing with bass lines, right? And doing all these different things really take us to a fun place, okay? Now let's get a little fancy, okay? So let's think about like letters that are fancy. So if you need to right now, okay, take a minute and try to go back to grade school, right? Or to a time in your life when cursive may have been important, right? When you learn to sign your name, like on a check, or like, you know, you get your library card, you got to sign your name on the dotted line, all that stuff, right? That like is so important for us to have a signature for. Whew, here it all is, coming back, right? Just tap that creativity. So let's just think here about cursive, right? And what that looks like. So, you know, when I think about the way I would write my name if I were And I'm so bad at making that happen. Like my K is terrible. Looks like an F. So it's all about form, right? And this is it. Like we're just going to be feeling the whole time, oh, we're getting it wrong. We're getting it wrong. You know, but let's just kind of practice. Seriously. Let's just play, right? Like let's just sort of see what, if we still have it, if we still have like the ability to make that happen. Some of this is terrible, right? But we can now like kind of inch into the idea of, you know, creating and playing with the pseudo cursive here. Okay, so watch this. So if I were to do like a real F, right, like yeah, that's hard to do. And by the way, I was working on like a slanted baseline. Fancy and cursive always kind of comes in and does some nice stuff, right? Here, let's see if we could oh, that's a nice S. R's. This is so hard to not pick up the pen and when to pick up the pen. Okay, so I still have a little bit of cursive in my wrist here. Maybe we're terrible at it, but there can be like some letters that are really easy to do, right? That we should start to think. So like we should all be able to think about like doing an A like that, right? So like practice an A like that, where you're start at the top, swoop around back to the top, and then down and a little up. Okay, here, let's do it bigger so you can see. It again, just the best you can, right? But this repetition here is going to build some muscle, okay? And if you press light, it's a little easier to kind of get a little funky and like see where things are going. Okay, so here, let's try A and then N. A, N, A, N, A, N, A, N. Okay, just over and over and over again. I know, fun. But this is how you do it, you know, like if you know, as artists draw and as artists letter and do these things, when we witness an artist who can just like, bam, off the dome, do anything, it's because that artist spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours doing this. You don't see that, right? Just like I'm doing it now. Like I love showing the stuff that like artists don't ever want to show because it's like, it's hard work. So like this is how you start to build. So watch, let's keep going here. A, N, C. Notice now I got a break. A, N, C. A, N, C. A, N, C. Ooh, nice. Okay. And then A, N, C. Ooh, Y. A, N, C, Y. See how the C and the Y fit real nice together? Those are easy to do. Ooh. Ah, crazy. Can I do it as one? Yeah, okay. So C, kick it out a little bit, Y. C, Y. So I'm just, again, break it in pieces. Try to make that stuff happen. Okay, now back to my F, all right? F, my F, it's terrible. It's a terrible F, okay? So we've worked on the word antsy now, right? And what I want to do is let's kick this into high gear and we're going to do this pseudo fancy script, okay? So here, let's make a matrix for ourselves and say A, N, C, Y. Ooh, look at that big kick out on there. Whoosh, big swooping ascender, or descender rather, right? A tail. There's a few names for these types of things in typography. Okay, so we got this thing set up. There's the ANSI. So now with the framework set up, instead of just Mike going like, right, like and just kind of making a terrible one, let's make like a forward F, right? Like if you think about like what's going on here. So here, a forward F might look something like this, right? Where it comes down and then swoops. Ooh, ooh, look at that. Look at that. I mean, sweet. That's just some fake calligraphy like right there. And we can even do that better. That's not a good one, okay? So we build out our matrix, okay? And let's, yeah, just real simple. Cool. And then A, N, C, and then let's make this Y do something crazy like spiral up like that. Oh my God. Dope, right? We got real advanced real quick because we were able to just understand, right? Like this is the fake part and this is the real part, okay? So you gotta like just play with the two there and understand like, hey, are we trying to just be fancy, or are we going for like full calligraphy? Like, are these wedding invitations? Do these need to be like a proper script? Or could you do something here that like gets into the realm of play and hand lettering and experimentation and stuff like that? You know, for me, it's about outcome. It's like, what's the goal? What do you want to do with this? So for us in this case, it's all about getting fancy, okay, and doing that. So I like to then play with like, you know, we did the F here. Like let's try like an S, right? Like a really swoopy S, like that. Like almost like for the word symphony. Right? And like, can you do something like that? Could you try to make that kind of thing happen? And I think the answer is yes. And see how now we're able to take advantage of and see all of those different layers that the guide layers that the typography uses, right? Again, we're using the rise. We are using our pseudo calligraphy. The fake part is in the beginning, but then I actually did some lowercase, you know what I'm saying? Like the lowercase fun stuff. K's and stuff are hard. So practice if you need to kind of see like what things look like, okay? But this, you know, this helps us like get into the fancy side of things and to like kind of understand script and, you know, where things are going. So with this, you should practice not only the rise, but like try to do a regular setup, try to do an arch like we did before, you know, and fill those things in. Try to make some fancy stuff happen there, right? So if we were trying to go fancy this way, there we go. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sweet. Okay, this one's a little harder because I have to make this interconnected stuff. But let's try this. Yeah, that N needed to go in the center. Totally boxed that. Yep. Totally boshed. There we go. Yep. I was trying to make that happen. It's hard. I don't quite have it worked out yet where like I do it with the script, but we'll have to practice that one. Okay. I would like to show you how now we would use the monoline, bringing the monoline back, but then making that fancy. Okay, like saying with that. So here, we'll call this the fancy sans serif, right? Or the monoline. The monoline is really just like we said, print. It's the thing that we do when we write grocery lists and stuff like that. So, okay. If we're gonna get into this space, we gotta understand at least one word here, and that is Didot. Okay, / Bodoni. So these two typefaces or typographers really come from this idea of the fancy sans serif, the monoline, which is the Art Deco period, which was the modernization of things to be minimalistic, right, and approachable and global. All with this idea of making fancy stuff accessible, okay? All right, so here's what this kind of typography looks like. So it starts off, you know, as monoline, but then it also gets double lined, and then it gets these feet, okay? So this is what like a V would look like in that type of world, okay? Let's do an A, okay? Again, stretch it out like that, double line, add the foot, boom. Okay, I'm way off baseline here, right? I should make something that's a little more set up, but yeah, this ain't good. A B, could try this, and you see that you get this mixture of thin and thick, and that's what this typography is really all about. All right, you can even add some here. could do the double setup here, but it's always about, you know, this idea of the super thin line mixed with the slab, with the heaviness, right? That like the blend of both really just took typography to it. Type didn't look like this for a long time. So here, like, let's think about the idea of when you think about things like Vogue and Elle magazine, right? Prada, Gucci, that like these things often, you know, use this monoline base, but then during the Deco period, and even today, you know, they often make things feel like it's it looks like from that time period. I'm a little bit out of space here, that's why I was just a little reluctant. So it's all about this foot, right? This sort of pin line type of a foot, which we call serifs in typography. So here it is on the thicker side, right? So this is a serif, okay? That right there. That right there. That's the key to this one, is that the Didot and Bodoni typographically is that it has that little foot serif plus the thicker side, right? The one portion of the body of the text, the letter, that has weight added to it. So here we'll do the S. That gets that fancy side. You usually just pick a side. Sometimes letters don't have a side that they can lean on, so you can pick one or do both. You know, the I, for example, is a singular letter. The O, you can pick one side or you can do both. It's up to you. There's lots of styles of this text. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and you can see there, right? Mine's a little funky, mine's a little strange, but nonetheless, it's what we're talking about here. It's this idea of the thin, thick, okay, with this. So also another thing that goes on with typography and fashion is they'll do something called sometimes called a Roman tracking or a Roman kerning, which is you take like a simple thing, let's say beauty, right? We'll take the word beauty. Let's make it much smaller though, so we can see kind of what I mean here. And P-E-A-U-T-Y, okay. It's even. Okay, so we'll go B-E-A-U. Oh, bummer, did that one terribly. Okay, so dividing it in half, we'll divide it in half. Okay, so yeah, here's how this goes. B-E-A, and then we'll divide this in half, and then we'll use that to plot the T. All right, and then U. All right, so I don't know if you all can see, but there's a ton of space between here, 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 and here, right? That big separation is like exactly what, you know, we need to understand. Like when you blow out a word like that, they have to all be caps and big tracking. Okay, tracking is the space in between the letters. It has to be all super separated, and that's how you can make a fashion label, right? The Romans did this on columns and things like that, like the column of Trajan, SPQR, right? They understood that like this spacing here was official, okay? And then the fashion houses of Rome and Milan, Paris, all that stuff adopted this because it, you know, it had that provenance, that history built into it. So this is the Didot and Bodoni with the separation, right? So you can see like just how Art Deco this is. So if you're in Miami and you see like a hotel, you know, and like we said, Elle, Vogue, fashion magazines, this is it's in its DNA, right? This kind of thing. Okay. All right. Let's talk about another set of lettering types here. And this is known as the Gothic, because of Gothic architecture, not because of Gothic metal, dun dun dun, not that. Okay, so this is going to be tall and skinny, and can be like a fun way to work with words in a space. You know what I mean? So we tend to see Gothic spaces to be like this, right? Like we said, like tall and skinny. Okay, that's a little bit wider, but it's kind of taller with the way, like sometimes we have a long word or a phrase and we can't fit it into something that's super wide and open. Okay, so this idea of tall and skinny, you know, like comes into the fray here. So if we were to take the word, let's take the word goth. Okay, G-O-T-H. G-O-T-H. So we need to make goth fit in here. Okay, so, right, what we want to do is to try and think about separating the space. All right, we got 4 letters here, and then boom, and boom. Okay, and that helps us, 1, 2, 3, 4, that helps us understand where these letters go. So I have to fit those letters inside of there. Okay, might be a little light, but, you know, bear with me here. All right, so let's start the first one. So the G, so it's got to go all the way up to the top, all the way to the bottom, and then all the way here, up, and then that's now my G. Whoa, cool. And then O, and then the T. You see where we're going with this? See how the letters, like, they're still letters. They still exist. But, man, oh, man, they are super, super tall. Okay. So that is the way that you do this type of an effect. So same here, right? Like, we could say, let's see. We could write the word horror. H. I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to plot it. I'm just going to go for it. O. R. I'll erase the end. R. I got funky X height on here. I got to play with that. O. R. Okay. And you can see there that, like, again, super squashed and super tall. A lot like Gothic architecture. You know, that's where this comes from, right? Is that, like, you know, a tower on a Gothic church, right, is like super tall, and there's the flying buttresses and all that stuff and everything. So that's where the term Gothic comes from, to mean that shape. Because the opposite in Rome was Romanesque, like a Romanesque church that has a dome and is like wide and flat, right? Very much like what we were doing before. That's kind of like where that fancy typography gets its feel, is that, like, it feels low and wide. And that's, you know, that's a really good thing. So you can play even more so with these, with the Goth. The other thing that's really important about the Goth point is that if you shift the X height up and down on this type, it makes a difference. So you can have fun by, you know, that's just a simple midpoint for it. But I don't know if y'all see, but in this one, if I were to draw X heights and stuff like that, you can see where my X height is. It's a little bit lower, a little bit lower than the actual, here's about where the midpoint is. So I set this to be lower, okay? You can actually, like, that plays with its level of, like, elegance and things like that. So if we were to do, like, a really tall X height, for example here, you see how the X height goes above the midpoint? Here's the midpoint. So we would go like this. It would feel more, it would feel a little taller, right? Versus a low X height. Let's try like a really low X height, like down here. So we might say like this, because this is where the X height for the G needs to go. Right, the T and the H would still behave that way, but then this would come down to there, right? Boom. So see how the changing of the X height here really kind of like plays with the way that the typography feels. Here, let's try a low rising X height. So, you know, this has like a really tall loop on that G. G-O-T. Here, we'll do Gothic. H. You can see that the H is super low there, really low. And then here we'll come in with the capital I. Doesn't really need much going on. But then here, watch, we got to have the C match the G. They're kind of kindred letters because they curve. There we go. So there's Gothic, right, with a super low X height right there. And you can see how that just kind of plays up the whole thing. So, you know, slide the X height is the way to go with this type of lettering, right? Is it slide it up, slide it down, and that's going to like give you the really the look and feel that you so desire, right? With this this type of thing. Okay, so that's cool, right? So far so good. We've learned about a lot of interesting, fun things here that are going on. Right, we've done simple stuff, we've done script, we've done fancy sans serif with the thick thin. We've just done some Gothic, okay? Let's end it and talk about 3D, okay? And get things to have now a little bit of dimension and depth in what it is that we're doing here. So I'm just looking to see if I have a backup pencil, because my pencil here is getting a little bit used down. So I may have to shift to pen here, just because I don't have a backup. But let's talk about 3D, okay, and just how it goes. Let's just see. Okay, cool. All right, so I got pen going here now. Sorry, I got to switch to pen. My pencil's really dead. I didn't sharpen it back up, and I'm about to run downstairs and do that. Okay, here we go. So the 3D effect, really, like we stated before, it starts with the monoline, and then it works the double line, okay, and then we start to add a few kinds of shadows and extrusions to what it is that we have going on here, okay. So I do want to sketch just to start, see if I can make this kind of thing happen. But here, let's take like a complicated letter, right? An easy and a complicated letter. Let's take the letter I, okay. Well, sorry, I already went for it on 3D because it's a little bit easier to do. But let's just take the letter I, just like that, right, which would be just essentially that, and then the letter S, okay, and just do them monoline for now, okay. So we've got a geometric line, very simple, and then we've got a organic curve line, which can get a little bit thing, you know, a little bit complicated, but it's all good, you know, no sweat. All right, so what I like to do is I like to draw, like, I want my letter to be like that wide. So I draw really light kind of extender lines like that, and then I do a copy of the line there, and then same distance from there, right? I measure it and I go, all right, it's about the distance of my eraser to the bottom line here. Same on that side, same here, same on that side. Good. Okay, so I have my skeleton inside of what I'm doing, and then we'll do the same thing with this now. Okay, is I will come and start to draw one side of the letter and then measure it up. Dope. Okay, so right about here, and then we'll do the second side of the letter. Now you might run into where if you make your letter a little too small, you know, you won't have room to do that double up. Okay, so just think, you know, I might need to make my letters a little bigger. And as you get better at drawing without using the skeleton framework, you know, you just kind of go for it. All right, and then just like before, where we cap these things off, okay, these caps. So these caps here are called terminals. Okay, so that is the it's where the serif goes, right? The terminal generally has where that is in place. So you see we've got the skeleton inside, so we use monoline, and then we almost play like double line. We don't really do like the double line like we did before, which was just shadow based. But now we have essentially like the way to form a letter, and then, you know, we can use this for any other letter that we're working on. Okay, so here, watch, we'll go. Right, and it's like really just try to use some kind of measurement system like on your pencil as a way to just keep this consistent. Okay, and you can see like I'm able to, it's another geometric letter, so that works out pretty well. Okay, so we said before that we could just do, there's a couple kinds of shadow techniques. So before we did just the double line, right? Which was, you know, really just like there, boom, maybe underneath here, and then like that. It's just an extra kind of line that we draw, and that was the doubling that we had really done before. And this is great because like we might want to use this when we have like to work on a t-shirt and we only have one color that we can print. That's how you get shadow and shade out of one color, is by doing this line shadow technique. It's really good for one color, right? And it can work all ways, right? You can do it on this side, boom. You can do it in the center, so it looks like it has lighting overhead, right? All that good stuff. So it really works out, okay? And then for when you have the opportunity to do two colors, well then, here, let's, I'll work this a little bit faster just because I've done it now a couple times. Okay, so now we can do a two color, which is real simple, which is just like the letter repeats itself, but then shifts, okay, and moves in space. So what we do is we draw the letter essentially again, but shifted and off to the side, okay, just like that. So we get now a duplicate, right? Really easy to do on the computer, but like draw it, try it with the drawing. See like, oh, well that's, again, use your measurement system, the lines on things, just to get it to be more accurate. Mine could be more accurate, right? Because I didn't really go with the measurement here. I should have. Okay. All right. So this is really good for a two color type of a scenario where you have that drop shadow. Okay. So this is the one color, the line shadow. This is the drop shadow, because that's all it is. It's just a dropped letter, and then that's it. It can be hard edged or soft edged. It's fully fine. But then lastly here, this is the one that like lets you get into more colors, or at least three colors. Okay, and this is the extruded block. Okay, so what's an extrusion? You ever play Play-Doh? You put a dough in the thing, you push it out, and it comes out looking like pasta. That's an extrusion, okay? Which is like a form is then it makes one long thing, right? Like, yeah, you get it. Okay, so again, let's draw now the letter form that we were working with before, the A, and you can see it's like same technique. This time now I'll draw the 2D, right? The 2D actually is part of the steps of this, but the only difference here now is we're going to erase the mimicked horizontal lines in that space here and here. Okay. Oh, and here. All right. And then we're going to do connector like that. So we draw this angled line here to connect that. Connect it there. Connect it. Boom, boom. Okay. And you can see all that works great. And now we have not just the drop shadow, but we have this connected, seeming like a beveled edge, an extruded letter. Like we just cut it out of cookie dough, right? With a big cookie cutter. So it has a side to it, or it was bored out of a machine, laser cut. You know the difference, right? So this really, y'all, lets you get like all kinds of 3D with it. So if you can think about, you know, how that goes, well then here, let's try. I'm gonna do like a funky 3D freehand. Yeah, a long time ago, I wanted to be a graffiti writer. I was so convinced that that was going to be in my future, and I tried so hard. Like, I would go up to these graffiti writers, you know, who I knew, whether they be schoolmates of mine or friends of friends, and I'd be like, yo, you know, I want to learn what you do, and like, boom, boom, boom. And like, not everybody was excited about teaching me, but some folks were, and they were really, you know. So anyway, I had a friend, Danny would teach me all these block letters, and he'd be like, man, you got to feel it. Let the lines be funky, let the angles be geometric, all that stuff. So anyway, right, thinking about this, we could take this word now and start to, you know, play with its three-dimensional aspects, right? Like trying to give this a look that then, you know, we can work with. So I'm just doing that drop shadow, you know, just keeping it simple here. Just any place I would see any dimensional aspects of the letters. Cool. Okay. Good. So I did the drop shadow, and now let me finish it off by erasing those lines and thinking about Let's see, where else do I need to erase? Right there, right there, right here, right here. Okay. And then connecting those diagonal lines like this. So now I know that there's facets to this, okay? You know, little dimensional sides to what's happening here. You know, these letters overlap, so their 3D might overlap or like meld together. Right? So now all of a sudden I've got this 3D space. I'm doing that messy because I'm gonna come in and clean it up after. Yeah, I might want to be better about making these different facets inside of here different shades of gray. Yeah, that's what makes it look interesting. Gives it that natural feel that there's light in the scenario. So adding 3D is guaranteed to add richness to stuff. You know, 3D lettering and graffiti is always considered more skilled, more interesting. You know, it's harder to do. It brings in elements of reality when the graffiti doesn't call for that. So it's like for some, maybe certainly on Gestalt, you know, more of a right, the principles of perception. Go. Yeah. Cool. Okay. And yeah, right, like now that I've got this 3D, you know, y'all, you can play with all kinds of ways to make letters 3D and, you know, make them more interesting and stuff like that. I mean, you can even cut in like a beveled edge and make your letters appear to be more like they're chiseled out of stone. I mean, you can get, it's all about these diagonal lines and playing with inline, right, like that. Like, it's, it's a little corny, but this is if you want your letters to start to, I'm darken this up. I realize it's probably hard to see. So, yeah. There you go. You know, this is all simple lettering basics, just so you can start to play with, you know, what it is that you want to do with your work and why, you know, lettering this way would make sense. You know, it's one thing to be able to just do it, but then why? You know, it's like, I am good at hammer. Like, okay, cool. You gonna build houses or what? So that's the thing to think about, right? This is getting crazy, really. Just, it's super cheese, but just want you to see like what's possible. Yeah, y'all, this is just some 3D fun that you can play with to make what you're doing a little more on the interesting side, if you know what I mean, right? So that's how you like add that richness. So scooting back here, right, you can see we understood that like there's 3 kinds of 3D in the way that we approach things, right? And how things can go. We can do things one color, right? We build it off of our monolines. We start thinking about this part, the terminal, very much so, and how serifs play a role sometimes. We did the drop shadow. We did the extruded block, which we just wrapped up. We did earlier the Gothic, if you remember this one, which was, you know, real tall, skinny letters. You know, you can play with, like we said, the X height is a really good thing to experiment with here, meaning that middle part of the letter where the letters go, right? Is it directly on the midpoint between the top and the bottom, the baseline and the cap height, or is it somewhere shifted above or below, right? Like those are the things you want to really think about and consider. We did the fancy sans serif, yeah, right? And then we also brought in the serif, okay? So, yeah, sorry, this wasn't exactly sans serif. It's pretty serifed, sorry. But then we were able to talk about this idea of Art Deco, right? And even laying out letters, right? Thinking about how we want to lay letters out in a space. We played with some fancy stuff, right? Trying to create some pseudo script, pseudo, cursive, and things like that. This really helps us when we're trying to come up with a look that is fancy, okay, and classic. And that required just some practice. We had to go back here and write over and over and over again. This is the home renovation show version, friends, where I'm doing it quick, and I've also been doing it for a while. So if y'all can make that practice happen, then you can really, really do this for yourself. And even before that, right, we talked about what it was like to just play with different layouts, right? Just different kinds of ways of bending the baseline, right? Doing a curve, doing a flag effect versus just a straight on baseline, right? And the way that most typography is presented to us, Microsoft Word and all that included. And then back to the beginning, right, where we just looked at working on our print, understanding that type and lettering has frameworks. If we can develop these frameworks and write them, draw them out, play with the dividing techniques that we talked about before, that we can do some really fun things. So, y'all, I really appreciate you guys. This has been a fantastic, quick little stream, little IRL. And yeah, always grateful for the folks who hang with us. And I hope this gets something going for you. If you come up with something really cool and, this lettering tutorial, even basics, just helped you, this is pre-typography. This is getting into it and just sort of drawing and understanding, when you're coming up with sketches and ideas, how you can wield more powerful lettering into doing what you're trying to do. So yeah, if you come up with something cool, send me a note, let me know. Really appreciate hearing back from folks who find success in this. Or if you're like, Mike, this is terrible, and I have comments and criticisms about how to make it better, oh, that would be even better. So let me know what that stuff looks like. All right, friends, really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much. This has been Mike Worth, little pop-up stream, Hand Lettering Basics 101. So check this one, rewind it, okay? But most of all, subscribe. Right, come check us out. Thanks, y'all. Peace.